Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, released October 31st, 1997, exclusively for the PlayStation, about a year after the first one released. These games look mostly the same, but that's only on the surface. Crash 2 does basically everything that a sequel should do. It's got added mechanics, more story, character voicing, better level design, the whole fucking works. The game gives you a warp room instead of the islands from the first game. Now, this makes it so much easier to always have your next level accessible to you. This game spends a lot less time focusing on the boss fights than the first game, which is kinda sad. I miss Pinstripe. But while the bosses are worse in this game, the levels are definitely the highlight. Crash 2 adds a couple of new mechanics to the old formula. Now you can body slam, which is the only way you can break into armored boxes. Now you can slide, duck, crawl, and jump higher when you come out of a duck or slide. These bigger jumps allow you to go higher and further. The traditional Crash spin is still here, but now you've got some other options. The levels are so much better than the first game. There are also some returning mechanics done better here, like Hog Wild from the first game being brought here, but it's always on a bear. But there are also lots of new ideas here too. Like, there are alternate paths for some levels that are only accessible in other levels. Like, the secret path in Road to Ruin is only accessible through digging it, which is a completely different level. Other paths are usually to find other gems or to get boxes that aren't available in the regular level. Some gems also have challenges behind them, like get to the end of the level before a timer runs out, or break no boxes throughout the level. I'm really not sure how any kid was supposed to figure that one out though. You need to collect every gem throughout the game to get the real ending of the game, but more on that later. The bonus stages here are just as good as the original, if not better. And there's actually one bonus stage that allows you to farm lives. Now this is because every time you die and respawn, there will be 2 new lives there. Now typically lives turn into normal boxes after you die. It's to prevent you from farming lives. But for whatever reason, that doesn't happen here. In this game, they also introduce death routes, which are only available if you make it to them without dying once throughout the level. Sometimes the death routes are needed to get every box in the level, but sometimes you have to beat the death route and get every box, and then go back the way you came to get other boxes. This game is so frustrating sometimes. The amount of backtracking you have to do to get every box is mind-numbing, and I love it. Just like last time, 100 Wumpa Fruit gets you a life. Nothing different there. TNT boxes get a countdown just like last time, but they also count towards the end box count. So make sure to jump on them and get the hell out of there. The Nitro boxes kill you instantly. Same old shit. Aku Aku is still Crash's only power-up, and he acts the same way he did in the first game. I do feel like there were less Aku Aku boxes in this game than in the first. But maybe that's just me though. The enemies in this game are pretty cool too. Well, I mean, we got floating bots, penguins that spin like Crash, sliding seals, monkeys, lots of other cool shit. You get chased from boulders just like in the first game, but they also added in giant snowballs and giant polar bears. There's a lot more variety in this game than in the first game, except for the boss battles. Like I said before, the bosses aren't as fun, or as hard as Crash 1 bosses. There are 5 bosses in this game, and the first 3 are stupidly easy. We see Ripperoo making his return from the first game, but also we see the Komodo brothers and Tiny Tim both making their grand entrances into the series. I just wish they had better grand entrances. Ripperoo was very easy here. I mean, you just dodge boxes and go where he isn't. The Komodo brothers are probably the easiest bosses in the game. You just let them spin themselves out and you can attack them. And as for Tiny Tim, you just get him to fall off the platform. The first game had such fun boss battles, and these just feel like such a letdown. The last 2 bosses, Injin and Cortex, are much harder than the first 3. Injin is in a giant mecha suit and shoots lasers and missiles at you. You can't even directly attack him yourself. You have to shoot Wumpa Fruit at him. Now, this is actually a pretty interesting idea, and it's the first time we get to see it in the series. Honestly, he caught me by surprise more than a couple of times. I almost got a game over because of him. Cortex is the final boss, and there's not much active threat here, but you do have a short amount of time to kill him before he gets away. Now, Cortex doesn't attack you. He just runs away. You have to dodge rocks and bombs to catch up to him and spin on him, all while controlling a jetpack. Forgot to mention there's jetpacks in this game. totally new mechanic for the game. There's like 2 levels that make you control a jetpack, and they can be kinda finicky sometimes. As for Cortex though, there's a lot less obstacles to dodge against him than in the other jetpack levels. I did lose against Cortex a ton of times though. You just barely can't catch up with them. This game has new enemies like bees that chase you, bomb-shooting plants, eels that light up water, and dudes with fucking guns. And with new mechanics like surfing, jetpacks, hidden routes, new attacks for Crash to do, and new ways for him to move, this shit slaps. The only thing that this game doesn't nail for the gameplay are the boss battles. Everything else though, totally solid. It does exactly what a sequel needs to do. The music here is so much stronger than the music in Crash 1. Yeah, and you can actually fucking hear it this time too. In Crash 1, I said that the bonus levels had the strongest music throughout the game, but this time, it's all pretty much on the same level. All of the music is very fitting for the levels they're in, and some of them are absolute bangers. And even the Warp Room music is pretty solid. Now, none of the songs here are as memorable as the songs in other platformers, but they do get the job done. The sound effects are even better this time than in Crash 1. There's also way more variety to the deaths in this game, from being frozen to being turned into an angel. But the thing that stands out the most is the actual voice acting of the characters. Besides sound effects, Crash doesn't get any actual lines himself, which is something that stays pretty consistent throughout the series. But basically everyone else in the game does. Coco's voice is kinda quiet throughout the game though, but I mean everyone's kind of is, but specifically for her and Cortex, I really had to turn up the volume.
It is imperative therefore that you bring them to me.
Now, besides those two, I believe the only other voices we get are Engine
Crystals from the surface. How do you expect to retrieve them when we...
and Nitrous Brio,
Quiet gem. Interesting.
who you may remember from the first game. I actually think Nitrous Brio and Cortex both have pretty good voice actors, even if you can barely hear Cortex.
Friends left on the surface, then we need to find an enemy.
All in all, the music and effects of this game are solid, and they're a huge improvement to the first game, especially in the music department. Now, do you remember how the first game had tons of world building, but almost no story? This game tries to do both, and it does a pretty decent job. Now, I do think the first game had better world building, but in its defense, it was building from the ground up. The second game didn't have to do as much, but they still did. Firstly, giving voices to some characters really gives them some personality. I mean, before, Cortex was just some big forehead dude, but now, he's him. We get to see more of the Crash universe here. We go into space, see new enemies, all that good stuff. A lot of future Crash games have much better world building than Crash 2, but Crash 2 doesn't completely drop the ball. While the story isn't groundbreaking, it does have a story, and that automatically puts it higher than Crash 1. The game takes place just after Crash 1 does. Cortex got launched into some cavern that we never actually see, but he finds a glowing crystal there. Now he figures the crystal has a ton of power, and a year later, alongside his assistant Dr. Ingen, he rebuilds his ship, the Cortex Vortex. Now Ingen reminds Cortex that they're gonna need all 25 of these crystals to power the Cortex Vortex. Realizing they have no more allies, they enlist Crash, telling him they need him to collect all 25 to save the world. Crash stupidly goes along with it after Cortex abducts him and puts him into the warp rooms, even with Coco telling him to be careful. Crash also gets a message from Dr. Nitrous Brio, that one boss from the first game, telling Crash that he should, instead, collect the 42 other gems. Now, these gems are a lot harder to find, but he says he will use them to stop Cortex, as he's had a change of heart. But he does say that if Crash continues to collect the 25 gems for Cortex, he's gonna have to stop him. This is actually where the enemies throughout the levels, and even the first 3 boss battles come from Dr. Nitrous Brio. Once Coco finally gets through to Crash and tells him Cortex's plan of powering the Cortex Vortex to brainwash everyone on Earth, Plankton style, Crash finally starts fighting Cortex, which is the last boss battle that I mentioned before. Once you beat Cortex, Coco and Crash start chilling on the beach again. And that's when Coco wonders, whatever happened to the Cortex Vortex? We end up seeing it drifting away before some credits. If you collect all 42 other gems, the ending is very different. We see Crash and Coco with Dr. Nitrous Brio, and they use the power of the gems to destroy the Cortex Vortex. This one is the canon ending to the game, and it's what leads into Crash 3. Now, the story is, again, nothing amazing, but it's a coherent story that makes sense. It's simple, and it sets the stage for Cortex to be defeated and rise again. While the story isn't groundbreaking, it also isn't trying to be. The focus of the game is top-tier platforming and amazing gameplay. The fact that there's a story here at all is just icing on the cake. The story is fine for what it is. And I know I said that in the first game, but this time, they've stepped it up a notch. But it's still just kind of fine. And with worse world building than the first game, I think this category overall gets a worse score, despite having a better story. Nothing here is exactly bad. I just can't say that this is a huge point for the second game. Alright, with everything being said, I'm throwing this game into the mid-A tier, just above Crash 1. It is better than Crash 1. The gameplay adds on to everything from the first game. The music and sound effects are both better, the story here actually exists, and while the world building doesn't feel as amazing as the first game, that's because Crash 1 was the first fucking game. Crash 2 did everything a sequel should have, but it wasn't groundbreaking enough for an S tier. However, it does get slightly higher than Crash 1, and that's pretty damn good. If you're picking from the 2 games, definitely go with Crash 2, especially if you're already familiar with the world of Crash Bandicoot. These 2 were decently similar in a lot of ways, but don't worry, shit gets really wacky later.